Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sarah Joseph, and I empower people with tools that help strengthen relationships. Tonight, we're talking about finding a balance between kind and firm. And this is our fifth week in our 6 week series of parenting through difficult times. Um, so let's jump right in. I'm wondering, what is your parenting style? Let's take a second just to think about how we end up parenting most of the time. There's usually four. Most parents fall into one of these four categories. So I'm the boss. This is the authoritarian type parenting style where my house, my rules is kind of the slogan, right? This type of parent feels like they're in charge and help their children follow directions by setting high expectations. Then we have the friend, who is more of the permissive parent. So they're more focused on fun and kindness and loving. Um, and they want to give their kids lots of freedom to figure out things on their own independently. So they don't create a lot of limits or boundaries. The minimalist is the uninvolved parent. So these parents are often really busy. They have a hands-off approach. They don't have rules or expectations. Their kids are often fend for themselves kind of kids. And then the last category is the teacher or authoritative. So these types of parents, they like rules and expectations. They practice what they preach, so they model for their kids, and they often help problem solve with their children and listen to what their kids have to say. So get their kids involved in in understanding what rules and expectations are, sometimes even setting those rules and expectation, um, and in the problem solving when those expectations aren't met. So take a moment to think about which category you fall into most of the time. Now, most parents end up, kind of moving between these depending on the situation. We're not necessarily always the boss or always the friend, but sometimes we do have a tendency to lean into one more than the other categories. So just take a moment to figure out which one you think you are in. Um, and then we're going to talk about our tendency to polarize. So we often, when it comes to parenting with a partner, we often end up overcompensating for our partners or for ourselves. And then polarizing. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word tonight. Polarizing instead of finding a balance. So if you were the friend and the permissive parent, and your partner is more the authoritarian or the boss parent, then often what happens is when you are permissive, your partner feels like you're too permissive and that they need to overcompensate. So they need to be more strict. So they'll lean into being firmer and stricter than they normally are to make up for your permissiveness, and vice versa. So when then what happens, because they're becoming more strict, you have to make up for that by being more kind and permissive, right? So, and we do this a lot to ourselves as well, where we start off by, trying to be kind and permissive, maybe not even permissive, but we start off being kind, kind, kind. And then there's a point where we just can't take it anymore. You're not doing as I'm asking in my kind voice. So now I'm going to be really hard, really firm. I'm going to put my foot down. And we might go overboard on that firmness and putting my foot down because we feel like the kindness didn't work, right? So now we've got to overcompensate and kind of reel you back in, or so to speak. Right? So because of this, we often miss finding that nice balance of being kind and firm that's in the middle, of taking some of the benefits from the firm side and taking some of the benefits from the permissive side, and melding them together to find a balance. And we we end up kind of ricocheting between the two. And that can be really confusing for kids and teens. And for parents, it can make things much harder for us. Um, they say that behavior that is consistently reinforced or discouraged is easier to change than behavior that is inconsistently reinforced or discouraged. So with that's what I'm saying about it makes it harder for us, right? So if we were consistently setting a rule, um, and I always use jumping on the bed as an example because I think it's just a good example. So I'm going to use it even though your kids are probably too old to be jumping on beds at this point. But it's still fun to do as an adult, right? So so let's think about we're allowing our kids to jump on the bed and we've always allowed them to jump on the bed. It's never been a question. You can jump on the bed. And then when they hit 13 years old, we say, you know what, you're too old, you're too big to be jumping on beds, you're going to break it. So now, no jumping on beds. Because it had been consistently allowed, and then at a certain age, we said no, and then it's consistently no, that behavior will be easy to change. It may only take a couple times of them trying to jump on the bed before they get the point that no, the rule has changed in the house. Whereas if we had begun with some days it's okay to jump on the bed, some days it's not okay to jump on the bed, and then we decided to put that firm line down, it would take a lot longer to extinguish that behavior at the 13 because it hadn't been consistently reinforced before. Um, so kids aren't sure, are you serious this time? Are you not serious this time? So I'm just going to keep trying until I figure it out, right? So it will take them longer to figure it out because we haven't been consistent. And when we overcompensate, that's what we're doing. We're being inconsistent to more extremes, right? So let's look a little bit more deeply at the different types of parenting styles. So when we look at this chart, it can be a little overwhelming at first, but I want you to just take a peek at the arrows. So going up, we have this high responsiveness and warmth. Okay, so that's how we respond to our children's emotions, to their needs, to their bids for connection with us, and how much warmth do we have in those responses. And so you can see that in permissive parenting, there is a lot of, we're very high in responsiveness and warmth, right? And in authoritarian or boss, there is not very much responsiveness and warmth. We're very low in that, right? And then in our controls of strictness and demanding, we're much higher in the boss, in the authoritarian, than we are in permissive. Permissive is very low when it comes to control, strictness, and demandingness. Uninvolved parent is a very neglectful parent, and they're very passive, and they just, they're not really interested, and so you're just kind of on your own. So we have very low warmth and responsiveness and very low control and strictness. Now, the cool thing is that when we go over to this authoritative, this is the teacher type parenting style. We have very high responsiveness and warmth and high demanding and strictness. So we kind of have the best of both worlds over here, right? We have power with, and we've talked a lot of that in previous sessions about how we want to create that power with, so that we're connected and we're cooperative and we're sharing our power, and we don't have this power over our kids, which they often push back against. That we have high expectations and the standards are clear, but we're also flexible and we're also sharing that power, and we're being respectful, and it's more democratic. So, everybody has a say in how things are working or how things are being problem solved. Um, and so when we're using this authoritative style of parenting, what we're doing is we're creating that balance of kind and firm in our parenting. So that parenting styles that balance that kind and firm, or support and control, that authoritative parent is really highly supportive and closely monitors and sets rules. So they care and they want to give you freedom, but you need to earn it. And for safety related issues, I'm going to take control, right? So what I can tell you about tweens and teens is that the authoritative parent is the best parenting style for a tween and teen, because they are trying to learn skills for life, right? They need to learn problem solving skills and independence and responsibility and accountability and all of those things. The authoritative parent is going to be able to teach that and hold them accountable, but also provide the support that is needed through the teen years as the brain is developing, and that amygdala, we talked about this in, I think, week 2, about how the brain is developing for a teen and how they are often more emotionally engaged. Their brains are more emotionally charged. And so they really do need that highly supportive parent who is there to hear them, to support them, to validate their feelings, and give them that safety, that space of safety, right? Um, and we know that when we do that for tweens and teens, that what we're doing is we're setting the groundwork for that relationship through the teen years to be one where they can feel safe, they can feel connected, they can feel capable, they can feel supported. And that really helps them bloom, and it helps them um, to develop healthy habits for themselves, but also to understand and be able to navigate peer pressure, and to not jump into risky behaviors as much. I mean, teens take risk. Don't get me wrong. That's part of being a teen. We need to risk in order to learn our limits and to learn our likes and our passions and all of those things. It's part of the way that teen brains grow, and teen brains push us outside of our comfort zones. But we we don't necessarily want our teens into risky behaviors like sex and drugs and alcohol. Um, and when we provide them with this authoritative parenting style, we help reduce those types of risks. All right, so kind and firm, that's the authoritative parenting style, really does help us. We take the kindness, which is important in order to show respect for our teen, and firmness is important to show respect for ourselves and for the needs of the situation. So authoritarian, or the boss type parenting methods, usually lack the kindness, and the permissive or friendship type style parenting methods lack firmness. So the research says that kids raised by the kind and firm parents are more likely to become independent, self-reliant, socially accepted, academically successful, and well-behaved. They're less likely to report depression and anxiety, and less likely to engage in that antisocial behavior, like I was saying, right? And research suggests that having at least one authoritative parent can make a big difference in a child's life, in a teen's life. So what we see from teens when we are using the authoritarian, so the boss type parenting tools, is a lot of rebellion. So we have either the rebellious child or the sneaky child, or the child who starts to close in on themselves. So withdraw, basically, right? So they either feel too confined and they withdraw from taking risks and trying new things and being outgoing and engaging socially, or they start to rebel. And so you see a lot of revenge type behavior or rebelling type behavior in the home. Or we get the sneaky ones who are really good at avoiding being caught, right? So lots of parents think that if they are the boss and they set down these really hard, firm rules and they attach punishments to those hard, firm rules when they are broken, that their children will be under control and will stop trying these risky behaviors. However, the opposite is often true, that it often makes kids push away, push harder, creates more power struggles. And if they're not doing it deliberately in your face, then they're often doing it behind your back and just get really good about sneaking out, sneaking around, and not getting caught. So really, this parenting style is really about power, right? And are we having power over, or are we having power with, right? How are we sharing our power or not sharing our power? So how are you going to exercise your power, right? Think about that boss parent, the authoritarian parent, as like the drill sergeant. You're going to do it now or else, right? And if we don't get you to do it the way that I want you to do it, I'm going to threat or coerce or punish you. And instead, by contrast, we have the authoritative, the kind and firm parent who's really going to aim to inspire cooperation, foster positive feelings, and teach kids the reasons for the rules and help kids solve problems, right? Engage kids in the process of solving problems. Those problems could be very much things like screen time, or curfews, or whatever it is that you think needs to be a rule set. It can be an engagement of talking to the kids and figuring out what's going on for them and why they want things a certain way, and sharing the reasons why you think that this rule needs to change or be set, and trying to find a ground that feels respectful for everyone involved and the needs of the situation, right? Okay. So kind and firm, one of the ways that we use kind and firm is to use the word and instead of but. So it's the and that really brings together the kindness and firmness and helps us avoid the extremes, right? So we can start by validating our kids' feelings, or showing their understanding, and then moving into the setting the limit, right? And these ones might be for a little bit younger kids, but you could say something like, I know you want to be on your phone and it's dinner time. We don't have phones at the table, right? So think about how you can use that showing understanding or validating a feeling, and then putting the word and in there to set the limit. And that's one way we can kind of bridge that kind and firm together, to help us avoid those extremes. Okay, so now when we talk about parenting kind and firm, and the authoritative parenting, I have to say that it's sometimes easier said than done, right? Because we have our own triggers as parents, because we have our own emotions, because sometimes it feels easier to take control than it does to sit down and talk and engage and inspire and encourage our child to do things. And because we have agendas, right? We think we know what needs to get done and how it's supposed to get done. Um, it seems easier to be on the firm side of things, to be on the more authoritarian side. Um, or it seems easier to be on the permissive side and just be like, oh, whatever, do it your way, right? I what pulls me back to the center often is firstly checking in with myself, what's going on with me, right? Taking a few deep breaths and then thinking about my intention. What am I trying to teach in this moment, or what is the important piece of this, right? And thinking about the long term of that aspect. Punishment, firmness often works in the moment, but has very little long term positive effects. Where this kind and firm has a lot of long term effects and can work in the moment, right? So we need to think about where we're headed, where we're trying to go, and what are the skills that we're trying to help our children learn in order to get to those spots. And see that these challenging moments along the way offer us a multitude of opportunity to be able to teach the skills, to embed the characteristics, to embed the values that will help our children to be successful, happy adults, right? It's not always the easiest route or the quickest route. However, it is a more effective and relationship building route. So I will leave you with that. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you are catching the replay, please leave me a comment below. And if you're here live, I'm going to turn off the recording now so that we can have a conversation. I'm just going to remind everybody that next week is our last week, and we will be talking about parenting stress and self-care. So how do we manage all the stress that's happening in the world and in raising kids and in dealing with teens, and how do we help ourselves so that we can show up as our best selves for our kids. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next week.